Hi, it's me again. I'm frustrated because I keep trying to get through this and I keep getting mad. But it's important, and it's not just for my loved ones, it's for yours, because I know they're not listening to any of us, because it sounds batshit crazy. I get this. Anyway, over last Sunday, so a week ago, I got a call from some loved ones who, yes, honestly, I have been avoiding, simply because the conversation went very much like I knew that it would, like they all have in the last 2 years. Don't know what I'm talking about. Think I'm crazy, which is nothing new. But because they don't understand, they greatly disapprove of a lot of the decisions that I've made in the last year. And when I try to bring these subjects up, it's, either change the subject or gotta go or laugh at me. And it's no laughing matter. So I want you to I went to the Brave browser because it's less filtered than some of the others, and type in Z Maps, Z-E-E Maps, food processing plant destruction, and go to the article that's the Gateway Pundit. It was June 23rd. It says interactive map of numerous U.S. food manufacturing plants. And it will bring you to this map. Now that's the United States. Now it's happening in other parts of the world. Let me blow this up so you can see it. But not to the extent that it's happening here. Damn it. Let me go back to this map. And understand it's all Western nations, or mostly Western nations. But it's not happening. You can't look at that and tell me that there's not something crazy going on. And when I blow it up, it doesn't look quite as bad. But it's pretty bad. Now, each one of those little colors means something different. But if you go to the white box with the blue flame, they tell you that it's fuel, electric, water, or fertilizer related. Now, after our conversation last Sunday, when I logged into Telegram, I found that another oil refinery caught fire and shut down in Whiting, Indiana. We now have fuel emergency in Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan. It's not reflecting at the pump yet, but it will. Now, when I did the last video, the magnitude of where we find ourselves, they said it was 95 or 98 food processing plants had gone. Now, it's much higher now. When you look it up, it's not coming up with anything recent. Why is that? But I knew Corey's Digs. I'd heard an interview, so I went to corysdigs.com, searched food manufacturing plants destroyed, and a couple articles came up. I suggest you read them. They go into the who, what, when, and where, why. But the quote that says, who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. Who controls money can control the world. So you see this going on with food and the energy. Now, as I said, the Whiting plant. But I knew that July 7th, there was a pipeline explosion, natural gas pipeline explosion in Fort Bend County. Turns out there's been several in Fort Bend County. And then 3 days later, July 10th, there was a natural gas refinery in Oklahoma, 1OK plant, caught fire, shut down. So look up oil refinery, natural gas pipeline, explosion, fire, shutdown. Vary your terms, but look it up and see how long this has been going on. So when I say, did you fill your heating oil? Yeah, I realize it's expensive, but it's going to only get worse. The fact that all these natural gas plants, look up coal train derailments. All of this going on, the controlling of the energy, they don't want us using the energy. It's going to go exponentially higher. Our electric bill just went up $60 because they say they don't produce it, they only supply it, and the cost of production's gone up. Well, of course it has. Look at all these plants that are blowing up. And then they're cutting off, shutting down all the independently owned coal-fired power plants. EEI was just shut down this week. there's more on the docket. The solar and the people need to look for themselves, because what's happening is not what they say it is. Imagine that. Okay, so water. Water's a different story. They're selling our water, have been for years, selling it from the natural lake, selling it from the various places. All of the lakes and reservoirs and rivers are down. We have famine stones showing up in Europe. Now, part of this is natural, of course. We've got the fact that we're going into, I told you 3 or 4 years ago, to be worried about food, because I was following people who are tracking the growing cycles. And when they were seeing all these crop destructions, these crop failures, or what the heck is going on, went to do a little research. And apparently every so many hundred years, we go into a cycle called the grand solar minimum that affects how the sun, how it affects what's going on here. The energy getting to the ground is different. You can feel that, but the UVC shouldn't be getting to the ground, and it is, and it's destructive to DNA. We've got crop failures all over the place. That's not just because of drought. And some of that drought is because the energy is different, the water is evaporating differently. But then you've got the fact that, as G's country is saying, they're seeding the clouds. And there's been arguments for as long as they've been doing it that no, they can't control that. Well, look it up, because they've been doing it for decades. Look up ionospheric heaters. It's happening. They have their own documents owning the weather by 2025. Now, I don't know, they're saying all these things, the video is probably going to get taken down. So is that, who knows? Because they're messing with things they can't possibly know the implications of. If you use it over here, what's going to happen over there? But, they tend to do, we don't know what's going to happen, let's just try it. So we've got all that. Food, water, energy. Banking. When Vlad tied oil and gas to the ruble or to gold, our dollar, the only thing giving it any value was the petrodollar. The fact that, it's the reserve currency and people had to use it to buy oil. Well, now they don't anymore, so they're sending them all home. And the fact that 40% of every dollar that's ever been printed has been printed in the last couple of years. So they seriously devalued our dollar, and with them all coming home, is it going to be like Weimar Republic? Maybe. A lot of the voices, the economist people, are saying yes. They're saying that if we make it to November without this thing crashing, it'll be a miracle. But it won't be much longer than that anyway. It's all propped up falsely anyway, has been since 2008. But they didn't have their CBDCs in order yet. And realize that that is total control. There's all kinds of people talking about it, what it means, the implications of it. Social credit score, and if you're not a good little slave, they shut you off. I know all of this sounds batshit crazy, because it is. It's batshit crazy. But it's happening, and it's happening fast. Now, I put 2 playlists, well, the last playlist has been there since forever, essential to understanding where we are. There's a Glenn Beck, love him or hate him, but there's a video talking about the CBDCs. But sounding alarms is farmers and ranchers and prepper type people. And there's a car guy in there all talking about the fuel and the fertilizer and how this is going to affect our food chain. What's happening currently to our food chain. What's happening to all of our supply chains. It's deliberate. And it's because they want the total control. They knew this was coming. And they used it for their benefit. Only they didn't have all their pieces in place. That's to our benefit. There's infighting among themselves. Who are they? Well, they're kind of exposing themselves at the moment. Just pay attention. They tell you who they are. Klaus. his little young global leaders, food, water, energy, and money. They kind of have the market covered. So if you're not doing me yammering on about the garden, there's a reason for that. Because I wanted to learn what I could now while there's still a grocery store to fall back on. Because it's not as simple as putting a seed in the dirt and adding water. I have been on a just nonstop battle with bugs. What are you going to do about the bugs? Do you have the seeds? Do you have the tools? I've got a gas-powered tiller, but if there's no gas, what am I going to do? The freezer. If there's no electricity, what am I going to do? There are plans that need to be made because they're telling you, Klaus has been saying for the last 2.5 years, warning about the grid and cyber pandemic. And when these people make warnings like that, it's not predictions. It's a warning. Pay attention to what they say. They tell you what they're going to do. I know it sounds crazy. It's happening. Now, as far as that brick and mortar building that I'm not sending him to, are you seeing what's happening there? They're not teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. They're teaching oppressor and oppressed. They're teaching all about skin color and genitals and just nonsense that's got nothing to do with surviving. We're in a mess. It's a deliberate mess. They've done it to us deliberately. Watch the last 2 videos I did. We are coming into some hard times. It's not insurmountable. There's no getting out of it comfortably. But it doesn't have to be as bad as the plans are. It's actually a time of opportunity because we can get out from under these controllers that were never supposed to have the kind of control that they do. We can take our power back. And I'm not talking about, violence. I don't agree with violence, period. I'm not talking about I'm not extreme anything. I don't have any kind of prejudice except against ignorance, because ignorance gets us into the position that we're in now. When people say that essential to understanding list, there's a video from G. Edward Griffin from the 60s that is warning us about what's happening now. But they were all considered to be, that couldn't possibly be happening. It's happening. The warnings have been there. Now, I'm hoping that the alternative structures that they're saying they're building are in their finishing stages, but we can't count on that. We have to count on each other. All of our little differences don't mean squat when we can't eat or we're watching our kids freeze or, whatever. There are bigger problems than the squabbles that we've got going right now. So yeah, the decisions that I've made in the last 1.5 years haven't been the greatest. It's not been all that comfortable, let me tell you. But the times that are coming are nothing like what we've known. But if you're here now, you come from stock that's been through this before. When you look back through history, we've been living in a very calm, very, even the poorest of the poor in the United States is living a whole lot better than some of these than kings used to in the olden days. Things are just going to be a little different. Now, we can either figure out how to build that amongst ourselves and with each other, or these asshat clowns can be calling the shots. I know my choice. I won't get the social credit score. They won't feed me. So, I won't have to live in that world. I don't want you living in that world. I don't want what's coming for you. Now, if you've participated in this experiment, there are doctors that are trying to show you things to do to help to build up your natural defenses, because your defenses have been made very, very low. There are, as crazy as it sounds, there's separate lots out there. Because the really bad lots, those people are already gone. It's bad time. The criminals are being outed. And because they're in a panic, which means they're going to need a big distraction, which means I really think the power's going out. But, you know, anyway, I'm out of time. Much love. I gotta go.